The Cold War was a period of geopolitical tension. It emerged from the ashes of World War II. The United States and the Soviet Union, once allies, became rivals. They competed for global dominance. The ideological divide between communism and capitalism fueled this conflict. It created a bipolar world order. Major events defined the early Cold War. The Truman Doctrine in 1947 pledged American support to countries resisting communism. The Marshall Plan, also in 1947, provided economic aid to rebuild war-torn Europe. The Berlin Blockade of 1948 saw the Soviets blockading West Berlin. This led to the Berlin Airlift, a major victory for the West. The Cold War was not confined to Europe. It spread globally, reaching Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The US and the Soviet Union sought to influence newly independent nations. They supported different sides in proxy wars. The Korean War, from 1950 to 1953, was one such conflict. It resulted in millions of casualties and a divided Korea. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. The Soviet Union placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles from the US. President John F. Kennedy ordered a naval blockade of Cuba. The world watched in fear as the two superpowers stood on the precipice of annihilation. After tense negotiations, the Soviet Union agreed to remove the missiles. This event highlighted the terrifying stakes of the Cold War. The Cold War was characterized by a constant nuclear threat. Both the US and the Soviet Union amassed massive nuclear arsenals. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction, or MAD, emerged. It argued that any nuclear attack would lead to retaliation and global annihilation. This created a terrifying equilibrium. The fear of nuclear war permeated every aspect of life. Beyond the threat of direct conflict, proxy wars became a hallmark of the Cold War. These were conflicts fought in third countries. The superpowers supported different sides. They used these wars to advance their own interests and contain the other's influence. These proxy wars had devastating consequences. They often resulted in prolonged conflicts, political instability, and immense human suffering. The Vietnam War, from 1955 to 1975, exemplified the human cost of these proxy conflicts. The US intervened to support South Vietnam against the Communist North. The war became a quagmire lasting for 2 decades. It resulted in millions of Vietnamese deaths and deeply divided American society. The Cold War also fueled arms races in other parts of the world. The superpowers supplied their allies and clients with increasingly sophisticated weapons. This militarization often exacerbated existing tensions and contributed to regional instability. The Cold War's legacy of militarization continues to haunt many parts of the world today. The Cold War was a time of intense espionage. Both the US and the Soviet Union developed vast intelligence networks. They sought to infiltrate each other's governments and steal secrets. Spies became both celebrated figures and objects of paranoia. Intelligence agencies wielded considerable power. They often operated in the shadows with little accountability. Political repression was another dark side of the Cold War. Both superpowers, in their pursuit of ideological dominance, suppressed dissent and violated human rights. In the Soviet Union and its satellite states, individuals suspected of disloyalty faced imprisonment, torture, or execution. The US, while often presenting itself as a beacon of freedom, supported authoritarian regimes deemed strategically important in its fight against communism. The Cold War also witnessed a global battle for hearts and minds. Propaganda and misinformation campaigns were rampant. Both sides sought to demonize the other and influence public opinion. This propaganda war often distorted reality and fueled mistrust between nations. It also had a lasting impact on media and information consumption patterns. The Cold War left an indelible mark on the relationship between the individual and the state. The constant threat of espionage and subversion created an atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia. Governments expanded their surveillance capabilities. They often justified these actions as necessary to protect national security. This legacy of surveillance continues to be debated today. The Cold War finally ended in 1991 with the collapse of the Soviet Union. It left a complex and enduring legacy on global politics. The bipolar world order disappeared. The US emerged as the sole superpower. However, the Cold War's impact continues to shape international relations. The Cold War also had a profound impact on technological development. The space race, a competition between the US and the Soviet Union to achieve superiority in space exploration, led to remarkable advancements in rocketry, satellite technology, and materials science. The Internet, originally developed as a military communication network, emerged from Cold War research. The end of the Cold War did not eliminate the threat of nuclear war. The legacy of nuclear proliferation continues to pose a significant challenge to global security. The collapse of the Soviet Union led to the proliferation of nuclear weapons and materials, increasing the risk of nuclear terrorism. The Cold War, despite its dark aspects, also had some positive consequences. It fostered a period of relative stability between the major powers. The fear of nuclear annihilation served as a deterrent against large-scale conflict. The competition between the superpowers also spurred advancements in science, technology, and human rights. The lessons learned from the Cold War continue to inform contemporary debates about international relations, nuclear weapons, and the balance between security and freedom.